James Morris stared into the murky depths of his chipped coffee mug like it might hold answers. It didn't. Just the same watery mix of instant powder and tap water he'd been drinking since payday had come and gone without arriving in his account. Again. He was 3 days into unemployment and already feeling like a fraud. He hadn't told Tasha. She'd panicked the last time he lost a job. Her condition meant she relied on him for almost everything: meals, meds, checkups, help getting dressed. She didn't need stress on top of that. So, for now, he was pretending. "James, can we get waffles tomorrow?" she called from her bedroom. He swallowed the lump in his throat. "Yeah, maybe," he said. "We'll see." Truth was, they'd be lucky to stretch what they had through the weekend. He opened the fridge and winced. A half carton of eggs, a questionable bag of spinach, and a bottle of store-brand ketchup. The freezer was worse some ice, a single microwave burrito, and Tasha's emergency stash of chocolate pudding. He closed it with the kind of quiet care that screamed despair. He opened his laptop. The screen took too long to load. As always. 4 tabs were already open: job boards, resume templates, a Craigslist gig page, and one Google Doc titled Emergency Plan. He hadn't added anything new to that last one in weeks. Just reread the same hopeful line over and over: "You only need one yes." So far, he'd gotten 11 no's. He clicked through job listings: warehouse picker, night shift, must lift 60 REBs, must have own transportation. He didn't have a car. Customer service rep, remote, must have wired internet connection. His internet had been downgraded to the cheapest tier 3 months ago and ran like molasses in winter. Each listing was a tiny act of rejection before he even hit apply. He took another sip of coffee and pulled his hoodie tighter. The heat hadn't kicked in that morning, probably the building's ancient boiler acting up again. The landlord wouldn't return his calls unless the rent was paid. He mentally calculated what was left in his account, $42.38, and that was before groceries. A notification popped up in the corner of the screen, one new message: "Amanda Era Grill Box." His stomach clenched. He opened the message with a mix of dread and curiosity. "James, I'm sorry about what happened. You didn't deserve that. I saw the video going around. Someone posted it from outside. I hope you're okay. If I hear anything about open spots, I'll let you know. Amanda." He blinked at the screen. Video. He hadn't checked social media in 2 days. No time for it. No energy. Just job apps, food budgeting, and making sure Tasha didn't realize anything was wrong. But now, curiosity burned. He clicked open Instagram. Nothing in his messages. Twitter. No notifications. Then he searched his name. It was there. Grainy footage. A low-quality video taken from outside the grill box window. A worker in a gray hoodie handing a food container to someone outside. The caption read, "Dude gave leftovers to a homeless guy and got fired for it. Capitalism wins again." The post had over 300,000 views. A thread of comments followed, some praising him, some attacking him, some arguing about food waste policies. Someone had tagged the official Grillbox account. Another claimed he was stealing company property. Another said he should run for office. James leaned back on the couch, stunned. That's what got me fired. That's what went viral. He remembered the moment too clearly: the weight of the container, the look on the man's face, the way he'd whispered, "Thank you," like it was a rare word. James hadn't thought about cameras, hadn't even considered he might be watched. It was closing time. They were throwing the food out anyway. The guy outside looked like he hadn't had a hot meal in days. He'd acted on instinct. And now that one gesture was ricocheting across the internet like a grenade. His phone buzzed, a text from an unknown number. "Are you the guy who fed the homeless man on TikTok? That was righteous, bro." He didn't reply. He closed the laptop and rested his head in his hands. Was this good attention? Bad? Would it help him get work? Hurt him? Would someone recognize him at the grocery store? His stomach growled. He hadn't eaten since yesterday afternoon. Tasha's voice, quiet and cautious. He turned. Yeah. She stood in the doorway, leaning on her walker. Her brown curls were frizzy. Her pajama top hung loose around her thin shoulders. "Did you forget my morning meds?" His heart sank. He'd been so buried in the job hunt and the shock of the video that he'd completely forgotten. No. I've got them right here, he lied, moving quickly to the kitchen. He poured water into a plastic cup and grabbed her pill organizer. As he helped her take them, he felt the guilt tighten around his ribs. She trusted him. She didn't ask for much. Just care, consistency, and calm. And here he was, barely holding things together. "You seem stressed," she said gently. "I'm fine," he replied. "Just didn't sleep great." She looked at him for a moment longer than usual. "Well, I still want waffles tomorrow." He smiled, even though it hurt. "You'll have waffles." As she shuffled back to her room, James stared at the front door, at the broken lock he hadn't gotten around to fixing, at the pile of unpaid bills on the side table, at the job rejection emails piling up like snowdrifts in his inbox. He didn't feel like a hero. He felt like a guy who made a dumb choice and got caught. But the internet didn't care about nuance. It loved stories. And right now, he was one whether he wanted to be or not. He poured the last of the coffee into his mug, turned back to the laptop, and hit apply again. Somewhere out there, someone might say yes. And if not, then he'd figure it out. One more day, one more shot. It had started with a coffee cup. 2 months earlier, James was finishing his third back-to-back closing shift. The dining room was already wiped down, chairs stacked, fryers cooling. He was hunched over the dish pit, scrubbing marinara off a casserole pan, when he noticed movement outside the back door. At first, he thought it was the wind. Then he saw a figure thin, motionless, half-shrouded in shadows beneath the flickering alley light. The guy didn't move, just stood there, wrapped in a torn army jacket, head down, as if the cold might forget he was alive if he didn't make a sound. James kept working, but 20 minutes later, the man was still there. And when James tossed the trash out, their eyes met. The guy didn't beg, didn't even speak. James hesitated, then ducked back inside. He grabbed a clean-to-go cup, filled it with hot coffee from the machine, and stepped back out. "Hey, man," he said, walking toward him cautiously, like approaching a stray animal. "You cold?" The man didn't respond, but he took the cup. The fingers that wrapped around it were red, cracked, trembling. James stood there awkwardly for a second, then said, "I'm James." No reply. Just a slow nod. The guy took a sip. A quiet exhale of steam. James turned to go back inside. That was it. No headlines, no heroics. Just one cold night, one cup of coffee. The man came back the next night. And the night after that, always the same time around closing. Always the same way quiet, watchful, like a ghost haunting the alley. James never asked questions. Never pried. He just started leaving things near the dumpster, a container with some fries, a few leftover rolls, half a chicken wrap, still warm. He made sure it was packed neatly, like it mattered, because it did. He didn't tell anyone. Not Amanda, not the line cooks, not even the dishwasher who smoked on breaks. Grillbox had strict rules about food waste. Once it was cooked and not served, it had to be trashed. They said it was a liability thing. Safety concerns, spoilage, potential lawsuits. But watching good food hit the bin while someone stood 20 feet away starving felt worse than breaking a rule. It felt like breaking himself. One night, it was raining hard sideways, soaking the alley in a sheet of cold misery. James hesitated. Everything inside him screamed, just go home. He was exhausted, soaked to the bone, and behind on sleep. But when he opened the door to leave, he saw him, huddled against the wall, water dripping from his coat, soaked through. No one should have to sleep like that. James went back inside, pulled a full meal chicken, rice, roasted vegetables, and packed it carefully. This time, instead of leaving it by the trash, he handed it directly to the man. The man looked at him for the first time, really looked. His eyes were sunken but clear. He whispered, "Thank you." James nodded, throat tight. That moment so brief, so human, felt like a match strike in a dark cave. The next night, everything fell apart. James never saw the camera, never heard the phone recording from inside the dining area. Someone had caught the exchange from a booth near the back window, probably filming a vlog or a TikTok without even realizing what they were capturing. The video didn't go up right away. It didn't explode immediately, but it would and it would change everything. The grill box bulletin board got a fresh set of laminated policy updates every quarter, corporate language, shrink-wrapped in HR doublespeak, tacked up beside the break room microwave. Most employees ignored it unless there was a schedule change or a new seasonal menu rollout. But one line caught James's attention the week after he first handed the meal off directly. Under no circumstances should prepared food be distributed to any non-paying individual. Failure to comply may result in termination. The ink was barely dry. James stood there, reading it twice. They'd tightened the policy. Probably after someone upstairs saw the security footage. Probably after someone whispered it up the chain. Amanda was the only manager who hadn't lost her humanity. She warned him with a glance when she saw him looking at the memo. "James," she said under her breath, "just be careful." He nodded. But the damage was done. The red line had been drawn, not in ink, but in principle. Feed the hungry. Lose your job. Still, the food kept coming. Every night, pounds of it untouched rotisserie chickens, perfectly fine salads tossed because the dressing had been drizzled too early, burgers that sat under the heat lamp a minute too long. Corporate called it loss control. James called it obscene. He couldn't stop seeing that man's face, tired, raw, grateful for one hot meal. The food bin filled up. His patience wore thin. Amanda noticed. "You're distracted," she said during a lull between shifts. "I'm just tired," James replied, avoiding eye contact. "You always cover. You never call out. But now you flinch every time you toss food. So talk to me." He hesitated, then said, "You ever feel like we're on the wrong side of something?" Amanda didn't answer immediately. Then yeah. "But this job's barely holding together as it is. You start making noise. Corporate drops you like a burnt steak." He knew she was right, but being right didn't make it feel any less wrong. That night, James made a choice. The man was waiting again, same spot, same silence. James packed a container like usual. This time, he didn't sneak around. He walked straight out the back door, head up, box in hand. "Here," he said. The man looked surprised. "You sure?" James nodded. "It's better than letting it rot." The man took it with both hands. His eyes shone in the dark. James turned, not knowing that inside, a customer was filming a closing vibe check video in the booth by the window, not knowing that his moment of defiance was being captured, captioned, and prepped for viral distribution. The next morning, James showed up to work like nothing had changed, but the shift felt off. Amanda avoided his eyes. The regional manager, someone James had only seen once before, was sitting in the office when he arrived, and a sealed manila envelope sat on the counter with his name written in block letters. He opened it slowly. Inside a printed termination notice, signed and stamped. No conversation, no explanation. Just one line highlighted in yellow. "Breach of company policy, unsanctioned food distribution." He read it twice, still not believing. Amanda finally looked at him. "I tried to stop it," she said softly. "They already knew. Someone sent the video in. Went to HQ." James didn't say anything. He couldn't. He just packed his few things in silent spatula, gloves, name tag, and walked out. No applause. No thank you. Just the cold slap of reality and the slow unraveling of a safety net he'd barely held together. Outside, the sun was rising, but for James, the day had already gone dark. The first time James saw the video, it had 812 views. He was on the bus, job hunting on a cracked phone screen with lagging Wi-Fi, when a notification popped up from a friend he hadn't heard from in years. "Bro, this you." Attached was a link to TikTok. The username was forgettable. The clip wasn't. It started with a shaky shot of the grill box kitchen, filmed through the glass window by someone eating fries and recording their late-night run. James was right there, in the frame gray hoodie, plastic container in hand, stepping out into the alley. You could hear the voice behind the camera. "No way, this dude's feeding the homeless with company food, LMAO." Then the caption slid onto the screen. "Worker feeding a homeless man and getting fired for it. This is America." James watched it 3 times. He didn't look heroic. He looked tired, like a guy doing something obvious, something simple, because no one else would. In the comments, the fire was already spreading. Corporate hellscape. "My manager wrote me up for giving a water cup to a homeless vet. This tracks. Respect to this dude. What's his... Wrong, I'm pretty sure that's the grill box in East Row. I know that alley." James's stomach turned. This wasn't just online noise. They'd found the location. That meant it wouldn't take long to find him. By noon, the video had crossed 10,000 views. By 4, it was on Instagram, reposted by an activist page with 500,000 followers. They'd slapped bold white text over the footage, "Fired for feeding a homeless man. Share if this pisses you off." And people did. TikTok, Twitter, Reddit, Facebook. It was everywhere. Someone tracked down the Grill Box's Yelp page and bombed it with 1-star reviews. Others called for a boycott. A few even found his full name. His inbox started to flood. Messages from strangers, offers to donate, questions from podcasters, DM requests from blue-check influencers. A producer from a local news station asked if he'd go on camera. James ignored them all. This wasn't what he wanted. He didn't feel noble. He felt exposed. That night, he sat at the kitchen table, phone face down, laptop open but untouched. Tasha was in her room, earbuds in, watching a cartoon he couldn't hear. The video had crossed 100,000 views. He didn't know if that meant anything. Would it help him get a job? Would it scare off employers? What if it made things worse? His phone buzzed. Another message. This one just read, "Thank you for being the kind of person this world needs." He read it twice. Then a second came through. "You broke the rules, but you didn't do anything wrong." That one stuck. By morning, it had passed 500,000 views. The noise was deafening. Someone posted an article titled, "Modern Martyrdom, the employee who chose compassion over policy." They used his name, his photo, a zoomed-in screenshot from the video. He was no longer anonymous. Grillbox Corporate released a statement on Twitter trying to calm the flames. It read like it had been written by 5 lawyers in a locked room. "While we support our team members' passion for community engagement, we have strict protocols in place to ensure food safety and liability compliance. We regret any misunderstanding that has occurred." That misunderstanding was his life. Amanda called him late that night. "I just wanted to say, I'm sorry." James sat in silence. "I didn't film it," she added quickly. "But I saw the video. I saw what they're saying. And they're not wrong." He finally spoke. "I didn't do it for attention." "I know," she said. "That's why it matters." She paused. "I hope something good comes out of it." He wasn't sure what to say. All he knew was that something had started, and there was no way to stop it now. The mailbox clanked open with a hollow echo that made James flinch. Bills. Always bills. He rifled through the envelope's power, rent, internet. One was marked, "Final Notice," in red. He stuffed them into his coat pocket and turned the key on his apartment door. Tasha looked up from the couch. TV remote balanced on her knee. "Did you get milk?" she asked. James held up a plastic grocery bag. "And eggs." She smiled. "You're the best." He nodded, gave a weak grin, and walked into the kitchen before she could see his hands shaking. The milk had cost $2.39. That left $12.04 in his checking account. Not enough for rent. Not even close. He couldn't keep pretending for much longer. The video had hit 1.1 million views. People he hadn't talked to since high school were tagging him in reposts. A former co-worker messaged, "Bro, you're everywhere. Why aren't you doing interviews?" Because he couldn't spin what had happened into some feel-good moral fable. Because he didn't feel brave, or wise, or worthy of being anyone's cause. He felt like a man who'd lost his job and was watching the internet argue about whether he deserved it. He finally took a call. It was a journalist from a local paper. She was patient, quiet, and didn't ask dumb questions. "Did you think about the consequences?" she asked. "I did," he said, "but they felt like the wrong consequences." That quote ran in bold at the top of the story. They called the article "A Meal, a Man, and the Price of Empathy." It lit a fire. The comments were relentless, people arguing over policy, food waste, poverty, capitalism. He was a hero. He was an idiot. He was both. He was neither. James turned off his notifications and went back to job hunting. 3 rejections landed in his inbox the next day. The 4th wasn't a rejection, it was worse. "We appreciate your application. However, due to the public nature of your recent situation, we don't believe this is the right fit." He sat in silence, rereading it. Public nature of your recent situation. He was a liability now. Too loud, too visible, too much baggage. He'd been canceled, just in reverse. That evening, as he was microwaving rice and beans, his phone rang again. Unknown number. He almost let it go to voicemail, but something made him pick up. "This is James." A pause. "Mr. Morris, my name's Celia Grant. I run a nonprofit in East Row called Feed Forward. We saw what happened, and we'd like to talk to you about a job. James blinked. A job? A real one. You'd be helping us scale our community kitchens. You've got frontline experience. And more importantly, you seem like someone who still remembers what empathy looks like. He leaned against the counter, stunned. Why me? Because people are watching. And maybe for once, we can turn that into something that matters. They met 2 days later. Celia was tall, serious, and carried herself like someone who didn't wait for permission to fix things. Their meeting was short, to the point, full-time. Starting pay's not great, but there's healthcare and dignity. That comes standard. He said yes before she finished the sentence. And just like that, James Morris went from fired line cook to program coordinator for a citywide food justice initiative. It didn't feel real. But when he got home and told Tasha, she cried. Not because he had a new job. Because for the first time in weeks, his eyes didn't look empty anymore. For a man who never asked to go viral, James Morris became a Rorschach test for the internet's conscience. The moment his face hit the front page of Reddit, the floodgates truly opened. The headline was sharp, calculated, irresistible. Fired for feeding the hungry, this man's only crime was compassion. The post exploded. Upvotes, awards, comments in the thousands. This is why the system's broken. Dude's a saint. Sure. But what if the food had gone bad and made someone sick? It's called being human. Try it sometime. People debated him like he was a policy paper. Every angle picked apart. His motivations, the ethics of corporate food waste, capitalism's chokehold on common sense. Then came the deeper dives. Someone unearthed an old mugshot. James, age 18, caught shoplifting baby formula and granola bars. That post got attention too. Not his first time stealing. So he's been feeding people since day one. I respect it. How is this relevant to anything? James watched it all unfold in real time. A strange cocktail of dread and numb awe. Tasha tried to stay out of it, but even she noticed. Why are people so weird about kindness, she asked one night, curled under a blanket on the couch. He didn't have an answer. Every few days brought a new twist. An op-ed in the Times praised him as a symbol of moral clarity in a corporatized wilderness. A right-wing blog labeled him a soft-headed liability who endangered company safety for likes. Someone sent him a DoorDash gift card. Another person offered to pay his rent anonymously. He declined both. He didn't want charity. He wanted purpose and stability. Something real he could hold. At Feed Forward, he started slow organizing deliveries, managing kitchen supply lists, drafting meal plans with a team of scrappy volunteers. The work was messy, imperfect, beautiful. One afternoon, while restocking crates of donated produce, a young woman asked, "Are you that James Morris?" He braced for it. "Yeah," he said. She smiled. "My brother showed me the video. He's been homeless since last year. Said it gave him hope. So, thanks." She moved on, sorting onions. He stood still for a long time after that. But the internet wasn't done with him. One tweet turned the story again. James Morris didn't get famous. He got weaponized. Y'all used him to feel better about a system you refused to change. It was harsh, brutally honest, and James couldn't disagree. The attention had brought him a job. Sure. But it hadn't stopped anyone else from being cold, hungry, or ignored. The system hadn't changed. He just got lucky, plucked from the wreckage by a non-profit with a heart and a mission. The others, still waiting outside alley doors, still invisible. That night, he posted something for the first time since the video went viral. "I didn't ask to be a symbol. I'm just a guy who was tired of seeing food hit the trash while people went hungry. If that makes me dangerous, so be it. But don't stop with me. Feed somebody." It was simple, honest, raw. It got thousands of shares, dozens of offers to volunteer. But James didn't care about the likes anymore. He cared about the kitchen, the people who came through the door, the meals he helped serve. He cared about building something that would outlive a hashtag. James was restocking canned tomatoes when Celia walked in with a woman in a tailored blazer and clean white sneakers. The contrast was stark designer polish standing in the middle of a shelter kitchen that smelled like onions and warm bread. "James," Celia said, "this is Leah Truitt, Director of Donor Partnerships with CityServe Collective." Leah extended a hand. "Big fan," she said, smiling. And I don't mean the viral video. I mean the logistics reports you've been sending in. James blinked. You read those. Everyone. He had written them like he cooked meals carefully. No fluff, just the truth. Inventory shortages, volunteer burnout, deliveries delayed because the van needed a new battery. Apparently someone noticed. Leah got to the point fast. We want to expand, she said. Satellite kitchens across the city, mobile units, school lunch partnerships. But we need someone to run operations. Celia cut in. We think that someone is you. James stared at them. I'm a cook, he said. You're a leader, Celia replied. You've built trust. You know what it's like to need help and not just give it. The room fell quiet. James looked around at the pots bubbling on the stove, the calendar with hand-scrawled menus, the volunteers laughing over sink loads of dishes. He had found something here, something solid, real. Now they wanted him to scale it, to lead it, to be the one calling the shots. That night, he walked home slowly. His head spun. Could he really do this? Manage teams, handle logistics? Be the face of a movement he never asked to start? But then he thought of the man in the alley, of the first meal, the first thank you, the first moment that cracked something open in him. He got home, opened his fridge, and made 2 waffles for Tasha. No syrup. But she didn't mind. As she ate, she looked at him and said, You seem taller. He smiled. I got offered something big today. You deserve it, she said. Like it was fact, like it had never been in doubt. He accepted the offer. The title was Long Director of Community Food Initiatives. The hours were unpredictable. The pressure, enormous. But for the first time in his life, James wasn't clocking in to survive. He was building something, a system where no one got fired for doing the right thing. The first day in the new role hit James like walking into a wind tunnel. His new office wasn't an office. It was a fold-out table in the corner of an old gym-turned-staging hub. Fluorescent lights buzzed overhead. One wall held a massive dry erase board cluttered with handwritten delivery routes. Names of schools and shelters, phone numbers, and way too many question marks. This is our command center, joked Maria, the volunteer coordinator. She handed him a clipboard and an apron. Hope you're good at organized chaos. He'd lived it. By week 2, he was on a first-name basis with half the city's school lunch administrators, 3 bakery owners, and the guy who donated his church van to their mobile kitchen pilot. He rode shotgun in the vans, loaded crates, took calls at midnight from shelters short on bread, fixed a broken refrigerator with duct tape and a desperate prayer. Everywhere he went, someone recognized him. The viral video lived on, even as his life moved far beyond it. A high school kid stopped him in the parking lot of a food bank. You're the guy who got fired. The boy said, I saw it in class. Our teacher showed it during civics. James didn't know how to respond to that. So he said what felt right. What did you think of it? The kid shrugged. I think it's messed up. We needed a video to realize feeding people should be normal. James nodded slowly. Yeah, me too. The job came with no glamour, no fame, just sweat and stories. People who needed more than a handout. People who wanted to matter. He met a mother who cried when she saw a box of fresh vegetables, first greens, in her house in 3 weeks. He hired a man who used to sleep outside the grill box dumpster, said his name was Leon, said he remembered James. You were the only one who looked at me like I was still human. Now Leon ran one of the food trucks. One night, James stayed late to update route schedules. The building was empty, dark except for a desk lamp. He pulled out a container of leftover stew, sat down. Then he remembered that first night, the alley, the cold. That one plate of food, the smallest act and the biggest echo. He didn't cry. He didn't smile. He just exhaled. Deep. Settled. The system hadn't changed, but now he was one of the people changing it. 3 months after the video, James stood at a folding table under an overpass. The wind cut through the city like a warning, but the line stretched anyway. Men, women, kids, all bundled tight, all waiting. Steam rose from soup vats. Volunteers handed out bowls and bread with quiet efficiency. Leon stood beside him, ladling chili like it was sacred work. Looks like we ran out of cornbread, he said. James glanced at the back of the van. Check crate 4. Should be 2 trays wrapped in foil. Leon grinned. Always 3 steps ahead. James didn't answer, just nodded, kept moving, kept working. A journalist showed up near the end of the line local paper, camera slung over one shoulder. James, she said, do you mind if I ask how do you feel about everything that's happened since that night? He looked out at the tables, the empty containers, the people walking away with full stomachs and a little less weight on their shoulders. "I feel like I was late to the party," he said. She tilted her head. "What do you mean?" "I thought feeding one person was a big deal. Turns out, that's just the floor, not the ceiling." Later that evening, back at headquarters, he added a new policy to the community kitchen handbook. Rule number 1, if someone's hungry, feed them. That was it. No legales, no exceptions. Celia read it, smiled, and said, "Let's print it." They framed it above the entry door of every new kitchen. By spring, they had 6, 1 mobile, 2 in repurposed schools, 3 in neighborhoods forgotten by city budgets and grocery chains. James didn't speak much at the opening ceremonies. He didn't like microphones. But every time he cut a ribbon, every time a family walked in and left fed, he felt it. The rules had changed. Not everywhere, not enough. But here, under this roof, the rules were rewritten. And they started with him. James's story reminds us that doing the right thing often comes at a cost, but it also creates ripples far beyond what we can see. In a world that prioritizes rules, profits, and protocol, he chose compassion over compliance and paid the price. But in that loss, he uncovered something more valuable: purpose, connection, and the power of ordinary people to rewrite the rules from the ground up. His journey shows that real change doesn't always start with big speeches or sweeping reforms. It starts with one quiet act of kindness, carried out when no one is watching. Thanks for watching and spending your time with this story. We appreciate you more than you know. If James's journey resonated with you, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next one. We've got more real stories that challenge the status quo and spotlight everyday heroes, and we want to hear from you. What did this story make you think about? What should we cover next? Drop your thoughts in the comments. Your feedback helps shape the content and keeps this community growing.